candle is lit in honor of Judaism. Behold, I give you a wise and discerning mind, so that none like you has been before you, and none like you shall arise after you. The second candle is lit in honor of Christianity. Let each one test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor. The third candle is lit in honor of Hinduism. The Hindu scriptures say that two things are needed for any kind of creative activity: consciousness and energy. Consciousness is worshipped in the form of Shiva, and energy in the form of the Divine Mother, Shakti. The initial creative inspiration, the effort to give it form, and the end result, all are seen as being the grace of the divine. The fourth candle is lit in honor of Islam. Allah has granted human beings with the capacity to create and has left it for them to develop. The fifth candle is lit in honor of Taoism. Give birth to and nourish all things without desiring to possess them. Give of yourself without expecting something in return. Assist people, but do not attempt to control them. This is how to realize the deep virtue of the universe. The sixth candle is lit in honor of Sikhism. Created in God's own image, every human being is creative, for life itself has been created as self-renewing, self-sustaining creative process. The final candle is lit in honor of Buddhism. All experiences are preceded by mind, having mind as their master, created by mind. Spirituality in action. Our theme, care for the poor and compassion. This reading is by Ernest Holmes. You are using the law of life every time you think, no matter how long you may have been using it wrongly in your ignorance. The very day, that hour, yes, the very moment you begin to use this power rightly, the effects of having used it wrongly will pass from your experience. So if you can just take this into that inner sanctuary for a few moments of contemplation. So how good it is to know that right where I am, the Spirit of God moves through me, as me, and around me, just as it does with you. Knowing that this indwelling Spirit is anchored within us and all the time. It is absolute truth. It is the absolute love and light and part of your being that is of peace. It is interwoven into the tapestry of our own soul. And so I know that this service today is in absolute divine order and divine right action. I'm knowing that there is just divine words being spoken. I know that it is touching our heart and our mind and into our soul. And I give such thanks for this, knowing that every aspect of this service is perfect. We are here by divine appointment. And I give such thanks for this. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. And together we say, and so it is.
Good morning.
Good morning.
She already left. Okay, I just wanted to, Mo is not feeling well today, but I wanted to thank her for getting the memo for alternate footwear today. If you didn't notice, she's wearing really fantastic pink fuzzy slippers. I happen to have on sequin Chuck Taylors. This is not a fashion statement on my part. We have moved in the last week or so. This is what I could find.
They look gorgeous.
Thank you. On Thursday, I was wearing Christmas socks. Basically, whatever works. Things were covered. So today marks the first day of Ramadan. And this is the holiest month of the Islamic year. Adherents fast from food and drink and several other things from sunrise to sunset. And then they often come together in extended family or in groups or in community to break that fast. And the initial meal that they have is a small meal called iftar. During this holy month, if you would like to greet a Muslim friend or neighbor or a stranger, and I would highly encourage that, especially in our current local climate and national climate, you would say, Ramadan Mubarak. Ramadan Mubarak. Have a blessed Ramadan. Ramadan Mubarak. Ramadan commemorates the first revelation of the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be unto him. And its observance is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. One of the 5 pillars. Ramadan is a time of spiritual reflection and increased devotion, and it's a time when Islamic communities come together to weave tighter connections with one another. During Ramadan, part of the reasoning behind fasting is to gain empathy and compassion for those who have less, for those who are hungry, for those who do not have water, clean water, for those who do not have companionship or family. I don't know if this was done consciously or if it's simply a happy accident. But the theme for this month among Centers for Spiritual Living is compassion, as Lana said. Specifically today we're talking about compassion being love in deed, love in doing, love in action. Excuse me. So I'm going to be really kind of ugly honest with you here for a second. And if you're new or maybe you don't know me very well, okay, some of you are laughing because you know me very well. This is kind of who I am. I'm sure you'll probably also be relieved to know I'm not in charge. Reverend Cece has a lot more experience. She is much more adept at doling out the difficult and easier to swallow bites than I am. I don't have that skill yet, and if we're being honest, I may never have that skill. So in being really ugly, honest about compassion, being love in deed or love in our actions, I don't understand. I don't understand why we have to keep talking about compassion. I just genuinely sometimes do not understand why we have to continue talking about why we should be compassionate. Because at the core of that, when I think about compassion, what its most basic component to me is don't be a jerk. I suspect this talk is assigned to me because the concept maybe isn't all that deep. I'm pretty. Maybe this is the talk I should have done last week when we had birthday cake, right? We could be done already. Don't be a jerk. Let's go. Cake. Soup, cornbread. Although I will tell you that the fact that I just used the word jerk instead of a host of other 4-letter words is a sign of growth for me. There may be hope for me yet, okay? I saw something on a couple of social media platforms, and I saw it a while ago, and I kind of looked for it, and I couldn't find it again. So this is not in any way, shape, form, or fashion a direct quote. But it said something about, the person that wrote it said something about, I can't make you care about other people. I can't make you see that every child deserves to be with people that love them. I can't make you believe that everyone deserves good food and clean water and solid shelter and the opportunity to pursue their dreams. I can't make you care about the state of the planet. It said something along those lines. Basically, the person said, I can't make you not be a jerk. And it really jumped out at me. We can't make one another be compassionate. We can't shame one another into compassion. That is our own internal work. And sometimes it's super easy, and a lot of times it is just excruciatingly difficult. I think most of us have a really easy time having compassion for animals, right? We adopt a shelter pet, we give to organizations that protect animals, we We vote for legislation that protects animals. And I don't know about any of you, but I personally really struggle having compassion for anyone on Capitol Hill. Oh, $170,000 a year isn't enough for you to live on? Sorry, Senator. Maybe that makes me a jerk, I don't know. I guess I do need to talk about this. Compassion is a decision we each make. It's a choice we make in every situation. If you don't like what I say today, you can come up to me after service and we can engage in a genuine and honest conversation. And we'll both come away with something positive. You will act in a way that shows me compassion because you are seeking to understand. You are seeking to understand. You're not seeking to change. You're not seeking to be right. You're seeking to understand. You can also choose to walk up to me after service and say, "You're a jerk." And we both lose out. Ernest Holmes, the person that synthesized the philosophy that Centers for Spiritual Living was founded on, Ernest Holmes said this. He said, "Compassion and caring are the ties that bind us together in mutual understanding and in the unified attempt to uncover divinity in each other." Compassion and caring are the ties that bind us together in mutual understanding and in the unified attempt to uncover divinity in each other. We seek to understand each other. When we do that, we uncover divinity. When we uncover divinity in another, it is mirrored back to us, and we uncover it in ourselves. And like it or not, we are bound up in one another. Our fate, our lives, whatever you want to call it, we are inextricably linked. I'm not saying anything new here. Indigenous people have been saying this since the beginning of time. Even Western mystics have been saying it for millennia. Again, from Ernest Holmes, suppose we make a daily habit of feeling we like people and they like us. We belong to them and they belong to us. We belong to them and they belong to us. We are bound up in one another, and when we seek to understand each other, we uncover the divinity that is in each of us. Now, I hear you. I do. I gotcha. I don't want to belong to that person over there, and I sure don't want them belonging to me. No. I get it. I do. Tough. Tough. No, I don't always like it either. But what I like less is how we're killing ourselves. How we're killing one another and how we are killing our planet because we refuse to seek to understand. We refuse to show compassion to one another and therefore to ourselves. The divine remains hidden in plain sight. And please hear the difference I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about charity. I'm talking about compassion, although charity can certainly be given and should be given with compassion. I once had a social work professor talk about hierarchy of giving. If you happen to come from a Jewish background, their hierarchy of giving is different from what this professor was talking about. What she meant was that when we give from a hierarchy, we give from the top down. We give from a feeling of superiority. Our giving says, "Oh, you poor thing, let me save you." It's the nice white ladies from the suburban gardening club going into the inner city neighborhood full of folks of color and saying, here's what you need to be more like us. With a hint to my fellow white people, that's a problem. Giving from a feeling of superiority in no way, shape, form, or fashion seeks to understand. In fact, if anything, it is a denial of divine diversity. It is a denial of namaste. It is a denial of the individual autonomy that each human being deserves. And you might not want to hear this. Got a lot of that today, don't I? You might not want to hear this, but if we want it for ourselves, we have to want it for everyone. And if we don't want it for everyone, we need to ask ourselves, why? Make no mistake, that's an act of self-compassion. That is an act of love for ourselves. That is love in action for ourselves, because we are seeking to understand ourselves. And that will change us. We're going down the rabbit hole, aren't we? Compassion is love in action, seek to understand, uncover divinity, wanting for others what we want for ourselves. Let's all change. We could be having birthday cake. Don't be a jerk. So why? Why might we not want for others what we want for ourselves? Why might we not want to attempt to understand, to seek to understand another when all we want is to be understood ourselves? It's hard. It's uncomfortable. I don't have anything in common with those jerks on Capitol Hill. Last week I talked about responsibility for our emotions. We take responsibility for our fear, our anger, our grief, our awkwardness, our ignorance, our discomfort. Saying, this is mine. It's mine to deal with. It's mine to act appropriately from, is seeking to understand ourselves. And it's a compassionate act. It is a way of actively loving ourselves. And when we get good at doing it for ourselves, we can then do it for another, right? We are changed by our seeking. So I have two very personal stories here for you. A few years back, I was friends with a black woman, and we were talking about what was happening in Ferguson, Missouri. If you remember, Michael Brown was killed by a police officer, and then there was a great deal of violence in the streets afterwards after that. And so we were talking about that, and basically I just screwed up. I didn't listen. I just kept running my mouth. And I know now that she tried to do some emotional labor with me, even though I wasn't owed that. She tried to be love in action for me. She did it to try and salvage our friendship. Our friendship was valuable enough to her to try to talk to me and get me to see that my intention didn't matter, because the impact of my words and attitudes were causing her harm. And I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the emotional maturity to take responsible for my own fear, my own anger, my own ignorance, and really listen. So finally, after a series of conversations, she really tried. She looked at me and said, I deserve to feel safe, and I no longer feel safe with you. I can no longer be friends with you. And I was bitter for a long time, bitter and angry But I also had enough understanding that I knew I wanted to feel safe among my friends too. I didn't want to have to constantly tell my friends that what they were saying was hurtful or harmful to me, that they were attacking some basic part of my humanity. So from there, it was easy to want that for her too. And that was when I could finally hear and seek to understand what I had done had caused harm. And it was then that I could take full responsibility for my defensiveness, for my fragileness, and for my awkwardness by not contacting her. I wanted to say, I'm sorry, I understand, can we be friends again? But that would have been me trying to assuage my own guilt and my own regret. And she does not and did not owe me that. No means no. And if you're sitting there saying, but, on my behalf, no. This is mine. And I take responsibility for it. But in seeking to understand both my former friend and myself, I can now tell you this story. I have an acquaintance that was verbally abusive to me and attempted to be emotionally abusive as well. I say attempted because for the most part I did not let that bother me. Unfortunately, I simply cannot walk away from this person. I have to continue to have some sort of contact with them for a period of time. And they insist on trying to make small talk with me. Hi, how are you? How's your family? How's school? How's it going? I recognize this. I have felt this. This is acting from awkwardness. This is acting from regret. I did not do that because basically I didn't have the opportunity. But I recognize the feelings behind the actions. Does this mean I'm allowing this person back into my life in any meaningful way? No, it does not. I keep them at arm's length. An act of compassion for myself is to recognize that what I need, I have to go out and get for myself. I have to go out and get it and ask for it and demand it to the best of my ability. That is an act of self-compassion. So I keep that person at arm's length, but I can have compassion toward them because I have sought to understand myself and another, and now I can apply that. And this is not giving from a feeling of superiority either. This is me recognizing myself in you. This is your pain being echoed in mine. I understand that in myself, so I can understand it in another. In seeking to understand, I have been changed. Not so long ago, I could not have dealt with that acquaintance at all. At all, in any way. I could not have wished them well. I could not have wanted success for them. I could not have wished for them what I want for myself. But in seeking to understand, engaging in love and action, our sameness is revealed. Sometimes what we realize we share is awkwardness. Sometimes what we share is regret. Sometimes what we share is the ability to change and the fear of it. Lilla Watson is an Aboriginal woman, an activist, artist, and educator. She said, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." Today I wear red to bring attention to the fact that since the 1970s, as many as 4,000 Native North American women have been murdered or are missing. I tell you that not to garner your sympathy. No one wants, oh, you poor thing, from any of us. I tell you this because none of us would want that for ourselves. I would not want that pain for myself or for my family. My liberation is bound up in the liberation of these indigenous women. I don't have to know them. Compassion is this almost magical throughway that we can all use to reveal the divine within ourselves and the world around us. As one of my friends put it, it's a pathway out of anger. It's a way for us to tear down artificial barriers that society might have us put up. It's the way we walk each other home, hand in hand. I can't make you care about other people. I can't make you care about animals. I can't make you care about the planet. I can't make you care. No shame. But I suspect we each care about ourselves, if nothing else. That's where our compassion starts from. It's not a big step from there to care about someone like ourselves, is it? It's a bigger step to care about someone unlike ourselves. But if we find ourselves unable to have compassion toward that person that is unlike us, I invite you to ask yourselves, why? To not want for another what we want for ourselves. I invite you to question that in yourself. Because what that says to me is that we believe there are limits to things. There are limited resources. There are limited amounts of food, money, love. Those are beliefs that kill, my friends. Those are beliefs that kill. Those are beliefs built on fear, not the truth that the universe is for us. It is life-affirming. Compassion, acting from a place of love, can reveal that truth to us. It is the starting place where we change ourselves. It is the starting place where we begin to reveal the divine to ourselves. Acting from a place of love is hard because some of us are hard to love. Tough. We're still bound up in one another. We can deny it until we're blue in the face. Not me. I'm not going anywhere with that jerk. Tough. If all we do is go over the edge together, bickering and fighting, we're still going over the edge together. My liberation is tied up in yours. I want for you what I want for myself. My divine nature is revealed to me when I see it in you. I seek to understand. That is love in action. That is compassion. That is why I care. What about you?